It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today's date is the 9th of February. It is a Monday, and this is the C Block to Charlie Block, and we are right on time this morning, John, aren't we?
Yeah, hey, I was the holdup this morning in A Block for sure.
No problem. I'll let you slide this time. Okay, you were going to bring something up, and that was?
Yeah, a headline today from the Washington Missourian. I guess technically it was over the weekend. Brock Olivo,
no kidding.
Formerly of St. Francis Borgia High School and the Missouri Tigers and the Detroit Lions of the National Football League, has taken a coaching role with the Miami Dolphins. Now, before we went to break, I teased it with, it also involves Missouri politics. Brad, do you remember a story from 18 years ago involving Brock Olivo and Missouri politics?
Yeah, he ran for something. Didn't he run for like state senate or something like that?
He ran for U.S. Congress.
That's right. Right.
Yeah, when Kenny Hulshoff ran for governor in 2008, Brock Olivo was one of several candidates in the congressional race, and that race was ultimately won by Blaine Luetkemeyer. And Bob Onder also ran for that seat as well. And Brock Olivo came to a few moments of national prominence in that congressional race thanks to an interview from Jason Rosenbaum. Do you remember the story?
I do.
Okay, and so do you remember the kind of the punchline that people were poking at Brock for?
I don't remember this. There was something about the fact, because he was a big star at San Francis Borgia, and then he went on to Mizzou. He was a big star at Mizzou. But I don't remember what the thing they were poking at him about was.
You have to be really deep in the minutia of Missouri politics, Brad. And I don't blame you for not remembering this, because it was sort of a quick moment. But Jason interviewed Brock Olivo at a Republican event when Brock had announced that he was going to be running for Congress. And Jason asked him, okay, so kind of what are you running on? What are your issues? And Brock said, well, he didn't really know. He didn't really have an answer to that, but he would be thinking about it and, would let people know. And Jason asked why Brock was running as a Republican, if I recall correctly. And Brock said that, well, I'm a Republican for now, which raised the hackles of a lot of Republicans. But perhaps most famously, Brock said, most people think of me just as a football player, but I was also in social studies class. And it's not clear whether Brock was trying to be funny. I think he was probably trying to be a little bit glib, showing a sense of humor. But that was picked up by a lot of people, including at the time, a guy who was super popular in liberal circles nationally named Keith Olbermann. And Jason went on to document, I looked up the story this morning. Jason was writing for the Columbia Tribune at the time. And Jason noted the fact that the story had been picked up nationally. So Brock, from the beginning, the tone of Jason's piece was, Brock has a little bit of trouble coming out of the gate. He doesn't have exactly a perfect launch for this race. I'll also add, though, Brad, as kind of a coda to this, or maybe an epilogue, that Jason has noted publicly that Brock Olivo has always been a good sport about it. If Brock wanted to be difficult, he could be vengeful or be angry or be defensive about the fact, pardon me, that as a first-time candidate, he didn't exactly have a very professional rollout. Really basic questions like, why are you running and what are your issues? You should be able to tackle that on day one. But Jason has noted that Brock has always been a good sport about it. And Brock has gone on to, according to this Washington Missourian piece, he was the Denver Broncos special teams coordinator in 2017. He worked as a special teams assistant for the team. Then he came back home and he coached at Washington University. He was one of the coaches for the WashU football team in 2022, went back to Mizzou as a special teams analyst in 23, and is now getting another shot at the big time with the Dolphins. So this is a story with a happy ending, Brad.
It's interesting. Brock recently talked to me, and he said, Brad, you have to give that Jason Rosenbaum a rest. I know he's coming after you, but just leave him alone, okay? And I go, okay,
always
fine.
Coming after you, Brad.
Right. Well, yeah, he's still to the point where the oldsters in Washmo, he was like a god. You know what I mean? It was Brock Olivo. That was the thing. And good guy, apparently, from what I hear. Hold on a minute. I just think he was, if to be honest with you, it sort of all comes into focus that I think he was a little bit thinking that if he could be a big football star, he could easily transition into politics, and it's not an easy transition, as you well may know. I mean, it's not the kind.
Go ahead, Brett.
I was going to say it's not the kind of thing that I mean, some guys have been able to do it, but it's like saying, it's almost like, let me give you the analogy. It's about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, who was this huge basketball star, and then all of a sudden one day he decides, I'm going to play baseball. And it just didn't quite work. You know what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, I get exactly what you mean. And I think politics is much the same way, because, Brad, you frequently point out that a guy like Donald Trump cannot be involved in electoral politics and come in and disrupt everything. But for every one Donald Trump you have 99 versions of Brock Olivo or Herschel Walker or someone else who comes in who says, I think I can parlay my popularity where everybody loves me as a Mizzou football player, and that will translate to electoral politics. But in the political world, if you haven't done anything in politics before and you essentially try to jump the line and get in front of the people who've been a township committee man and a state rep and a state senator, you immediately have a target on your back. And you go from being a beloved character to someone who's just cosplaying as a political candidate.
Yeah, but and it's also, I think, the situation that I point out, and I know you're going to go, here we go again. This is Dedham Tops or whatever John calls it. They haven't paid their dues. And what I mean is haven't paid their dues. They haven't rose through the ranks and learned the important aspects of, who you kowtow to and who you don't, and how you make a speech in front of the Lions Club and blah, 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 blah. And both Eric Greitens and Donald Trump bypassed that, where they've never been elected to an office. And when you look at it from the standpoint of the highest office in the land is the president, and Trump did that in 2016, and the highest office in the state of Missouri is a governor. And if you consider that a lot of governors become presidents, it's a pretty high profile position. I think that was the detriment to Greitens, and to a certain extent the detriments to Trump. And I think that in his second term, he's learned a lot from mistakes he made from his first term, although he shouldn't put memes of the Obamas and as monkeys on his Truth Social account, but that's a whole nother story. I mean, it's just, that thing is just so bizarre. Did you see that?
Yeah, I think it's probably been the biggest story in the last 96 hours. And if I recall correctly, someone did a Lion King parody that included everyone in national politics: Hillary, Bill, Michelle Obama, Barack, and then someone from the Trump administration, an intern allegedly. The video was like on an auto scroll after a screen capture, and ended up tweeting it or posting it from Trump Social. And then suddenly that is Donald Trump making a meme of the Obamas as monkeys.
But here's the interesting point to me. Why is it that the Obamas took all the attention, took all the air out of the room, that they were monkeys, when the other people who were other different animals didn't take any attraction? Like, what's his name? Pencil neck geek. What's Trump call him all the time? The guy who's now the state senator in California.
Gavin Newsom?
No. The guy who impeached him.
Adam Schiff.
Shifty Schiff. He was like a. Did you see this?
I didn't watch the video.
He was a giraffe.
Oh, nice. You get a long neck.
The long neck. Nobody said anything about that. Oh, he made Adam Schiff look like a giraffe. Is it the point where, and I know I'm touching on a hot topic issue here, is it the point where black people have been compared to monkeys? Is that the situation? And that's why we went, oh my God, we can't.
Yeah, I think so. And it's also just a good opportunity for people to be disingenuous and pretend they don't know. Like, it's one thing to see the story and think, wow, if the Trump campaign made a video of the Obamas as monkeys, then that's pretty offensive. Versus, oh, it's a Lion King parody that wasn't made by the Trump team, and it has everybody as animals in a jungle. Like, you're just disingenuous if you have that information and you continue to push an invalid theme.
Well, I mean, and the press is just all over this because, once again, I know John's saying, once again, when Ari Berliner, or whatever her name was.
Ari Berliner, yeah.
Ari Berliner came out did the Free Press article talking about NPR, and he worked in the Washington Bureau, and there was not one single solitary Republican in the Washington Bureau. And then you can have, what's her name? Catherine Maher, I think is her name. I think I just had that beginning of the show. She could get on the air and say, well, we're unbiased and we don't have any prejudice prejudices, and we do stuff straight down the line. It's just the interesting thing about this is like, for example, and I'm not here, Jason Rosenbaum. Matter of fact, I had the remote car starter put in my car over the weekend, so
that's good. And you got that at a certain place in Lake St. Louis where you can get your boat taken care of. Right. You can get remote starters for your boat out there too.
Okay, so let's go on to the STLPR website, which is right now. Okay, and here we go again. Top story. For some St. Louisans living on the street, frostbite can cause lasting harm. No kidding. Second story. St. Louis comptroller says tornado should spark city-county cooperation. Third story. St. Louis not-for-profit to add more bus stop benches across the bi-state region. Fourth story. A search for economic mobility in St. Louis leads a reporter to a high school and more questions. Fifth story. Family of Demetria McDial still looking for answers about her death at the St. Louis jail. And it goes on and on and on. Now, John, the only story that's, actually, the story about Florissant, but every other story is struggling St. Louis program to repair vacant land bank homes, gets boost from aldermen, lead lurks among 50,000 St. Louis water pipes. City officials need residents to help identify them. If you got a staff of 34 reporters, how come in the top, I just went through 8 stories. There's not one stinking story about St. Charles County, Jefferson County, Franklin County, St. Clair County, Madison County, Lincoln County, Monroe County. It's all St. Louis City stuff except for the stuff in Florissant. How is that?
I think it's an acknowledgement from them that both Diane Jones and separately WesplexNews.com do such a great job of covering the region. That there's really, and also, if you read some of the archive stuff from News Plus, it's just incredible.
John, you know where the news desert is as far as NPR is concerned? The news desert is in St. Charles County. That's where the news desert is.
Early Berliner was doing a study, and he said that the the staff of Joy 99.1, none of them say they listen to Bad Bunny. So that's where the real discrimination is, I think.
John, we got to go. We're going to be on time for a change. Matter of fact, I'm going to hit the top of the hour. On the top of the hour. John, I will talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Brad.